Council. Today is Tuesday, October 18th. Council meets 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. All meetings are open to the public. For those that cannot make it to City Hall, meetings are televised via cable on Channel 35 or can be viewed by viewing our website at www.cityofla.org. This meeting is now in session. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. And if I could ask in the chambers to have a little quiet. Shh. That always works. Madam Clerk.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Han, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weisstein, Padilla, 11 members present, and a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. This being Tuesday, I'd like to have Mr. Reyes, if he would, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And if I could ask everyone to please stand.
Please stand, put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Zine, if you're present, are you ready for your presentation this morning? Not yet. Okay. Then we will move forward on the agenda. Madam Clerk, first item of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Parks moves. Mr. Smith seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Labange moves. Mr. Reyes seconds.
On the regular agenda, items noticed for public hearings. Items 1 through 6 are street lighting ordinances, either abandoning or confirming the assessments.
Those are any of those specials? I know we do not have any cards on those items. If not, Madam Clerk, those items are now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Those items have been approved. Next order of business.
And Madam President, the ordinances do go over for 1 week to October 25th.
Thank you very much.
Next item is item number 7. It's also a public hearing item, and the applicant consents to a continuance to November 30th.
That item will be continued to November 30th.
The next items, 8 and 9, are also public hearing items. Those are Budget and Finance Committee reports and ordinances first consideration.
Yes, Mr. Parks.
8 and 9, for just 1 second, we need to clarify a couple of issues.
We'll hold those on the desk, item 8 and 9. Madam Clerk.
The next items are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 10 through 23. Items 10 and 11 are confirmations of commissioners. Do you wish to hold those on the desk for a moment?
We will hold those on the desk.
Then that would leave before council items 12 through 23.
Yes, Mr. Weiss.
I'd like to call item 22 special, and I don't know if this was on the agenda for a public hearing or not, but I know there are several cards from folks in my district, and I'd move for a 10-minute public hearing.
Thank you. We'll call that special and have a public hearing at that time. Yes, Mr. Reyes.
Item 21, please, special.
Mr. Reyes, any other items? Mr. Labange.
13.
13. Okay. Any other specials, colleagues? Mr. Rosendahl. 17. So, Madam Clerk, the items before us.
Those would be items 12 through 23 with the exception of 13, 17, 21, and 22.
Those items are now before us. Colleagues, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
11 ayes. Okay, we just approved that item, so we'll need to go back and reconsider that item. Colleagues, item number 14 to be called special by Mr. Rosendahl. Madam Clerk, for reconsideration, item number 14. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Okay, that item is now called special by Mr. Rosendahl. Next order of business.
Next items, and Madam President, also on those items, the ordinances are over for 1 week to October 25th.
Thank you.
The next items are items for which public hearings have not been held. Items 24 through 73, 10 votes are required for consideration.
Yes, Mr. Labange. 36 and 47.
47 amendment is circulated, so that's all on that one.
Okay, any other specials?
Changing the date for the
Mr.
23rd to the 13th.
41, 35 through 41.
35 through 41?
Yes, 35 through 41.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Parks.
There's special 71, 72, we could ask 71 out of order.
I'm sorry?
We'd have a special on 71 and 72 and request 71 to be taken out of order.
Okay. Okay. And any other specials, colleagues?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Garcetti.
68 has an amending motion, but I believe it's been circulated, so I just want to, we can take it on consent. It's not, okay, it's just been turned in, so we can hold that, but we can do by consent once it's circulated.
Okay, so we'll hold that on the table, the desk as well. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, the remainder of the items are now before us. If you could open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Those items have been approved.
And the ordinance on item 24 is over for 1 week.
Thank you.
Next items are on the supplemental agenda, 74 and 75. Those are items for which public hearings have not been held.
Anyone wish to call those items special? If not, those items are before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Those items have been approved. Next order.
Madam President, do you wish to take up public comment at this time, or is Mr. Zine's presentation ready?
Mr. Zine, are your presentation ready? We ready yet? No? Yes. No, we'll move with Mr. Zine's presentation.
Well, there's good days and there's bad days. And today is a day of retirement for one of LA's finest, who has devoted more than 34 years of service to the people of Los Angeles, and that is Lieutenant William Allen Yarborough, LAPD. And he's got some of his colleagues with him. If you guys want to come up and join us, and we'll all be on camera, which may not be a bad thing. Lieutenant William Allen Yarborough, retiring from the Los Angeles Police Department with more than 34 years of service, retiring October 18th. Began his career with the police department as a police officer October 4th, 1971, retiring as Lieutenant 2 from the Professional Standards Bureau Internal Affairs Group. And you've been there for a long time. 7 years. 7 years there. Lieutenant Yarborough worked the following assignments during his tenure with the LAPD: Van Nuys Patrol Division, West Valley Division Patrol and Vice, Air Support Division, Foothill Division Patrol, and I included in there LAPPO delegate. He was a delegate for the police officers while he was at the Foothill Division, Wilshire Division Patrol, Professional Standards Bureau, Internal Affairs Group for the last 7 years. His outstanding work product is demonstrated by the police star he received while rescuing fire victims and numerous commendations he received from supervisors, commanding officers, private citizens, and other law enforcement agencies. Lieutenant Yarborough was born September 23, 1946 in Glendale, California, to Reva and Bill Yarborough. Resided in Van Nuys and Simi Valley most of his life. He currently resides in Castaic with his wife. Is your wife here? She here? She's not here? I don't know, in traffic. With his wife of 12 years, Los Angeles Police Detective Carol Yarborough, and their daughter, Caitlin. The City Council commends you, Lieutenant, for your fine duty to the people of Los Angeles, and I know you personally. I've known you for all those years from the time we were delegates with the PPL, representing officers, and I know you've gone on in the department to achieve that status. This is a resolution listing all of your accomplishments during the career with the Los Angeles Police Department, signed by all of us from the city family, including our mayor, our controller, our city attorney. The whole family is signing this resolution for you, Lieutenant Yarborough, for the fine job you've done. 34 years for the LAPD, and your wife's still with the LAPD?
Yes, she is.
She's going to continue working while you go into retirement?
7 more years.
7 more years, and then she'll retire along with you. So you'll be able to sleep in, she'll go to work, get that pension check once a month, and enjoy all that. I know you're an active guy. I know you've done a wonderful career, and we want to bring you down and formally congratulate your captains here. If you want to say a few words, Cap.
On behalf of the Los Angeles Police Department, I'd like to thank the council for honoring Al Yarborough, a man that I've had the opportunity to work with for the last 5 years. He's been a great partner, a great mentor, and a great individual who's been committed to the motto of Professional Standards Bureau, the truth of the matter. It's a great day for Al. It's a great day for the LAPD to see one of our own move on into retirement. Councilmember Zine, I'd like to thank you for taking this opportunity to honor Al. And again, I want to thank the council, and particularly, I want to thank you, Al, for everything that you've done for the department and for me. So again, thanks, Al.
Al's always been a quiet kind of guy, but here you are on camera for the microphone.
Thank you. 34 years can pass much quicker than anybody ever expects. It's been a wonderful career. I've loved every minute of it. It's not without second thoughts that I leave, but I am leaving. I have another opportunity that's come up and that I'm going to take advantage of. But I've had a chance to work with some of the best people in the world as I've traveled the world, other people that I've met. They're all outstanding. I've enjoyed every second. And, you know, the LAPD will always be in my heart, as will the city of Los Angeles as I move on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Zine.
Thank you. And joining now today, some of the officers, detectives that he works with, that he supervises. So we appreciate you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we'll take next the two commissioners that are before us. That is item number 10 and item number 11, correct?
They are different commissions, Madam President.
Yes. So we'll take number 10 first.
And that's confirmation of Ms. Norma Navarro to the El Pueblo, the Los Angeles Historical Monument Authority.
Good morning. Welcome to City Council.
Thank you.
We don't have any questions from my colleagues. Oh, Mr. Labange.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your service to the great city of Los Angeles as a selection to this commission by Mayor Villaraigosa. You know the importance of this wonderful site, and wish you well, and appreciate all of us. We're open to any suggestions you would have to help further the cause of making people aware of the history of Los Angeles at the birthplace of the city, at El Pueblo. Thank you.
Thank you.
I recommend an aye vote.
An aye vote. We'll make this easy on you today. Colleagues and Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Our next commissioner?
Is Mr. Rafi Gazarian, and that's to the Commission on Children, Youth, and Their Families.
Good morning.
Good morning.
He's a wonderful commissioner. He's from CD2, so we're just pleased that your willingness to serve on this commission. It's an incredible opportunity for you and for us, and I think I see Mr. Labange running to his microphone. Right. Mr. Labange.
Just recommend a unanimous vote. We're very excited about this opportunity, this great individual who's going to serve the city well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, and we look forward to sitting down with you and talking about how we can help the commission. Anything you'd like to add before we move your approval?
I look forward to it.
Okay, great, thank you. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Congratulations. Yes, we'll do these two items forthwith, item 10 and 11, and what was the other item? 20. Item 20 will also go forthwith. Madam Clerk, I think the next item we discussed was going to public comment, and then we'll move to our items that we have before us.
And also, I believe there was a request from Mr. Parks to take item 71.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to ask Mrs. Alice Holmes to come up to the center, along with her son, Derek Brown. They're here as part of a reward motion in that on August the 25th, her son, Deandra McConnell, 19, was fatally wounded while walking with his friends northbound on Raymond Avenue, near Raymond Avenue School at 7500 South Raymond. And so, Mrs. Thomas, if you could make some comments that you'd like to make, and she's asking for the public's help.
It's so hard.
That's good. Take your time.
I just want to thank the police department
Step to the microphone so we can.
for their help in trying to find the murder or the murderers of my son, DeAndre McConnell. He was just an innocent person walking to the store. If anybody knows anything, seen anything, please call the police department for our help. Please. Please help us.
Dietrich, you want to make any comment? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Colleagues, we have a $50,000 reward today asking for the public assistance in locating the suspects involved in this homicide. We'd like to direct them to call 77th Division for any information. As you can see, the family certainly is distraught about this circumstance and is certainly looking for whatever assistance that they can get. The phone number to 77th, let me get that, would be 213-485-1383, and Detective Garza from 77th Division Homicide. Thank you, Ms. Holmes, for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Parks, and we'll say our prayers that we're able to find the individual responsible for that death. Madam Clerk, our next order is public comment. Take a vote on that item. The item is now before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item has been approved. Next order is the public comment. Sky Anderson and Yolinda Jo Wright.
Hi, I'm Sky Anderson. I appeared for the City Council about 2 or 3 months ago for gangs, kids in gangs. I had something called Save Our Kids from Gangs, Drugs, and Prison. I lived in San Diego for 20 years, and I want to compliment the City Council. Compared to San Diego, you guys are doing a good job. I mean, you know, it's just... I was in San Diego last Sunday, and the whole main street downtown is in complete darkness because some developer wanted to make it pretty, and he put these lights up that don't shine on the street. So, you know, you guys really do a good job. I want to compliment Mr. Rosendahl about, I was a community access producer in King Los Angeles, and they started charging the producers $35 a show, and I couldn't afford it, and I called Mr. Rosendahl up, and in 5 minutes he said that's unfair, and he removed the fee. Comcast Cable refused to do it. I ended up being barred from Comcast Cable because I was so adamant that it was unfair. The ITA eventually removed the fee, so now we have free public access. I want to thank Mr. Garcetta. I meet him a couple times in his Saturday afternoon office, and he's very gracious to me. I need to apologize to Jan Perry. I haven't always been nice to her and her staff, but she does do a good job, and I apologize. When I'm wrong, I believe in admitting it. I represent now something called Save Our Kids, Save Our Seniors, SOS, because I'm a senior citizen. I applied repeatedly for HUD authorizing housing, and they always found a way to reject my application because they don't want someone who's a community activist. They want someone who's submissive and not going to follow their rules to the letter. I applied at this is just not about me, it's about all senior citizens getting abused by these management companies authorized by HUD. I applied for the Hollywood Knickerbocker, and I called up, and They refused to answer a simple question. I called back. They refused to answer a simple question. I asked who their supervisor was. They lied to me. They lied to me again. I called their corporate office. Their corporate office refused to cooperate with me. And then I got upset about that, and they sent me a letter saying they're rejecting my application because I threatened the staff and they feared for the welfare of their staff and the residents. I'm not a violent person. I've never been in jail for violence. I've never had one violent citation in my life, and yet they found a reason to get rid of me. They're not about people, human beings. They're about numbers. The head of the K&G Goldstein and KISS management company was Jonah Goldstein. He escaped from the Holocaust, and he was a very sympathetic man to people who were abused by institutions. But the new founder, the new president, Carol Cloney, seemed to have no ethics about senior citizens being abused by her staff. I repeatedly called her office. They refused to take my phone calls. They hang up on me. I don't know where we're going with all this, except, I filed a complaint with California Quadell. They're absolutely useless. They're wasting, they're just another layer of bureaucracy to deny the people getting any help. I called Lamo to talk to Mary Meyer, and she's a very nice person. She's always giving me the right information. I told her you need to get rid of California Quadell because they're a scam. They're wasting the public's money. Is they're abusing me, a healthy 72-year-old citizen? What are they doing to those who are unhealthy, who are submissive? So I'm going to take this up as a cause, and if you have any say-so about authorizing who gets money from the city council, Lamo or California Quadell, you might have people who live in those institutions, who apply for those institutions, come up here and testify. It took me a month of intense investigation because I got tired of being abused by these people. I find out that people who apply for housing under HUD have no rights. Like I applied for a place in San Diego, and the letter came back saying no forwarding address, and they withdrew my application. I called up 2 years later when I thought it'd be at the top. I said, I'm sorry, you've got to go to the bottom of the list again. It says, well, it wasn't my fault that the letter came back. I said, that doesn't matter, you go to the bottom of the list again. I applied at another place, and I was in severe pain from 3 broken ribs and a sprained wrist. I was told that broken ribs are the most painful ailment a person can have. They told me it takes 6 months to recover. They sent me a letter saying I was at the top of the list. I said, I'm not ready to move. I'm in too much pain. And they took me off their list. I called back a month later saying I felt much better. Can I go back? And they said, no, you've got to go to the bottom of the list again and wait 2 or 3 years. That's their way they treat senior citizens. It's not about human beings needing compassion. It's about numbers, just like the Nazis. I know this beautiful 85-year-old lady who was in the Nazi Holocaust, and she's got numbers tattooed on her arm. That's the way these management companies authorized by HUD treat people. We're numbers. We're not human beings deserving compassion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Ms. Wright.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to say that I hope everyone is safe today. There's a lot of rain going on, and it seems to be wreaking havoc in different areas of our community. So I'd like to wish everyone safe commutes today. And, I just wanted to give this to Councilwoman Gruhl, if it's on. You guys have a good day.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, that now closes public comment. Next order of business.
Next item before council is item number 8, and that was called special by Councilmember Parks, and I believe there is an amendment on it also.
Mr. Parks.
Can we hold that for a second? We haven't seen the amendment. There's some language change just to work out the allocation on a 12-month basis.
Okay, we'll hold that on the
And
desk.
also number 9, did you want to hold that on the desk also?
Number 9, we could move forward. I think that one's resolved.
Resolved, okay. Item 9 is now before us, colleagues. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item is now approved. Next order of business.
Madam President, and the ordinance goes over 1 week.
1 week. Next order, I think, is
Item
number
number
13.
13 was called special by Councilmember Labange.
Councilmember Labange? Councilmember Labange?
Is the ethics director here, please? Oh, 14 to do. Thank you.
We'll take item 13 and 14 together.
Members, this was a recommendation that came forth for an ordinance on this matter. Could you explain to us, Ms. Pelham?
This is item, the mandatory briefings for campaign consultants and fundraisers. Yes, Leanne Pelham with the Ethics Commission. Good morning. Last winter, the Ethics Commission forwarded a recommendation to the council based on a motion that you had introduced a year prior that would require briefings, attendance at briefings by City Ethics Commission staff on city campaign finance laws and ethics laws for people who are compensated campaign consultants or campaign fundraisers. It was a recommendation that we made acknowledging that there are areas where candidates have continued to tell us that their consultants and fundraisers are in the front lines of their campaigns and in the trenches often, and that those individuals would be well served to have information about the city's campaign finance and ethics laws so that it will help increase compliance with those laws by city candidates and their campaigns.
Right. Thank you very much. Members, this was something that I thought about and that you just mentioned there that's real important. Unfortunately, I got fined, and I got the letter right here, just got it in my mail, for a campaign error that was made that probably could have been prevented had everybody been schooled on the laws. The schools on the laws of how we run campaigns here. And now, previously, we just had the treasurers who would come. But this will have the campaign consultant or the principal person running the campaign, as well as the principal person doing the fundraiser. And how many of you remember the Saturdays that you would go to and you would sit and listen to the briefing that was given by the Ethics Commission on what is required for a candidate? And I think that's so important, but I think it should be expanded, and that's why I support this. I don't support the fine, but I'm going to take it like a ticket, and I'll take care of my compliance of it. But I support it because it was the law. But I think it could be vetted, and I hope you look out and Ethics Commission goes out to campaigns and sees how they're run and see how they're run on real time and make sure that we have an understanding of what the whole issue is in running for public office, to make sure that the laws are complied with and that people can get their message out, and that the important role that the Los Angeles City Ethics Commission plays in Los Angeles can be enhanced so that the people of the city know that this is the best city in how elections are run and how they're done. So I thank you very much, and I appreciate it, and the check's in the mail, but not totally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBond. We have Councilmember Rosendahl, followed by Councilmember Zine, Garcetti, and Hahn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm just tying 13 and 14 together because they're all part of the process. You know, when I was a candidate, I hired a law firm, I hired a political consulting firm, paid them big bucks. And the bottom line was to make sure all the rules are followed within the process. I have noticed that some of my colleagues have been fined, and I know it's been fines in many cases, if not all cases, that have been technical violations of various rules and regulations. So I applaud what Mr. LeBonge just said, putting everybody through the training, making all the rules and laws transparent, because you know, the devil is in the details when it comes to these kinds of rules and regulations. So I look forward to the cooperation between candidates in all of their aspects of their campaigns for doing this. The second issue there, which is about ethics online registration, would you explain that a little bit to us?
Yes, this is the item 14, I believe. The Ethics Commission has developed over the last year or so an in-house online electronic filing system. So much like the way that the public can now go to our website and access data from candidates' campaigns directly filed by campaigns about their campaign activities, we've developed that same technology for use in public disclosure of lobbying quarterly reports, so that when people want to see what registered lobbyists are reporting, first of all, who they are, and then what kind of activity they're reporting each calendar quarter, they'll be able to do that by going to our website and seeing that information fully. We have voluntarily implemented that program, encouraging registered lobbyists to use that system, and we currently have about a 50% use rate. But I think the sense with that technology and with the comments we've received from the lobbying community is that this would be an enhancement, it would make filing easier, and it would make information transparent and immediately accessible to the public who wants to track this information. So this proposal would be an ordinance to enact the requirement that all registered lobbyists use that filing system electronically to online register and to report their quarterly information online beginning January the 1st of 2006.
Thank you. And the Clean Money campaign, my colleagues, Wendy Gruhl and Eric Garcetti and myself and Tony Cardenas showed up for the press thing. I'm a strong believer in clean money. I really want to take all of money out of politics. I think it's the root of so much corruption within the political process. The clock on that, I'm told, will start after a council motion in November, and then we'll have a 90-day period to review it all over the nation. I saw the Commission Act the other day. What was that about?
The commission at its last meeting on last Tuesday, heard a motion, a request by one of our commissioners to place that discussion item on our agenda for November the 8th. So on the November 8th agenda for the City Ethics Commission, our agency will be considering not only a comprehensive campaign finance study that we're in the process of completing that looks back at the 2005 elections and puts some information out in terms of historical trends and what we found and what the continuing issues are. But they'll also have the opportunity to start talking about whether a full public financing system, which some call clean money, whether that system should be something that the city consider. And so the Commission's discussion on those issues will start at its November 8th meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Zine.
Good morning. Tom LaBonge, I join you in that. And here's the question. We hire people, fundraisers and campaign consultants, to run these campaigns and to do it right. We go to the class. We don't handle the money. We don't account for that. That's done by the people we pay, whether it be the treasurer or the campaign consultant. The events are held. They collect the checks. They do the documentation. They fill out the forms. We review those. We don't put in for the matching funds. That's done by the people that we hire. I would ask, and if I need to make an amendment to this, that when it's broadcast that Council Member Zine owes $5 million for campaign violation, no, I don't. No, it wasn't that. I'll give you an example. That the name of the consultant, the name of the treasurer also be broadcast, because what people say is, oh, you committed a violation of the law. While we are the candidate and our name appears there, the people that we hire, that we pay to do that, in my particular case, came forward and said, we made the error, the matter's been adjudicated, and the fine's been paid. Why don't we put that information out at the same time so people will know that this person doesn't make violations, this person does make violations, but the candidates, and I think if you look around this horseshoe, each and every one of us has been fined something by the Ethics Commission for activities that were done by our treasurers, by our fundraisers. So I would just ask, why couldn't we, since they're getting training, and when something is assessed, to put their names along with it? The council member whose treasurer was so-and-so and the campaign consultant so-and-so, why can't we put that out so people will know it's not just us that did it? Because the average citizen says, oh, you committed a violation, you committed 15, 20, 50 violations, you must be a bad person. Why can't we do that?
A couple of responses, Council Member. I think that this ordinance would go a long way towards providing that information. As you know, we don't control the press stories that are generated from actions that stem from the Commission's activities.
But you don't put the names out. You only put the name of the candidate. You don't put the name of the treasurer or the fundraiser.
I think we have, and it depends on the specific facts. But I think what your question is speaking to is that there are certainly circumstances in which committees and candidates have continued to tell us that the areas that are the biggest problem for them in their campaign compliance are those areas that consultants and fundraisers are responsible for. Obviously, the candidate is ultimately responsible, and I think the record over time shows that many, many candidates are doing quite well at their compliance. I think the city should be pleased that there has been significant improvement in candidates' records over the years based on the education and outreach and effort that the campaigns are making. The lingering area that we continue to see, it seems, is in the area of what consultants and fundraisers are primarily charged with doing for the campaigns. So I think having this information available as soon as the contract has occurred between a candidate and their consultant or their fundraiser will be helpful and an important step towards what you're talking about.
But still, the public's not going to know the name. For example, I'm going to look for a person to do my treasury, a person to run the campaign. You're going to look and say, you know, like the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, who has the violations, who doesn't have the violations. It gives you at least an indication. Someone's always doing violations, other person's not doing violations. Why couldn't we include that when we're doing the report, and if someone's being fined, that their treasurer and fundraiser, so-and-so and so-and-so, attached to this campaign? Because what it looks like when you read in the paper is the candidate did this all himself or herself, that they collected the money, they did the treasury report, they did everything, and they did the blunder. And when they request matching funds, you know, they made the error. When in fact, the people that we hire and pay to do that made the error, but then the egg's on our face and the people say, well, what did you do wrong? Hey, I hired people to do that. I'm just saying, I'm attaching those names for public reference and also for prospective candidates to say who doesn't have the problems and who does have the problems. Maybe some have more situations and get involved in it than others.
I think there are two areas where that speaks to. One is, of course, the legal document itself, when somebody has entered into an agreement with the commission, and that will always be driven by what the specific facts are of a case. Some treasurers may be named, some places they may not. Some fundraisers or consultants may be named, and others they may not. But the other area is just general public information, and that is information that I think we certainly could do a better job of on our website, where we provide information to the public about the experience of our enforcement cases. We can certainly add additional information there that will show the range of individuals that are working with the campaigns, so that there's a better reflection of the totality of the campaign's activities. That may be something we can explore.
That would be good, but I just look at when the media report comes out, when they do a little story in the paper, so-and-so was fined so much money for 12 violations. It'd be nice to say so-and-so who's treasurer and fundraiser, and not to say they messed up, but just to attach it so people will know it's not just this candidate, because the public perception is much different than what we know. In the reality of this, it's a very complex situation. The accounting, the documentation, the audits that take place. And I'm not saying ethics is doing a bad job. What I'm saying is the public knowledge of the candidates and the elected officials versus those people who actually did that job that reported those. Because when it goes to matching funds, none of us put in for the matching funds. That's all done by the people we hire. And I'm just saying we are held accountable and responsible, but there are other people who are carrying out those functions, and they are professional people who are paid to do that. So I'd like to see that when the media goes out, because I guess you folks do a media story or a media release or something, so-and-so is, we're assessing a fine, we're sending it to the administrative hearing, to have those names attached to it. If the media doesn't want to print it, fine, but at least it gives this understanding that we're all in this boat together, and they've got as much to lose as we do, and basically it's our reputation of being forthright and honest and having integrity in the positions that we hold. So, can we include that in there? Do I do a motion? Do we do?
I don't think you need a motion. I think that's something that we can look to do by just amending the information we provide publicly.
I think it would clear up a lot of confusion in the public's mind along the way, because I know that when I look around this horseshoe, everyone from the minimum fine to the large fines, I think everyone has been fined something. And if you look at every record, it's not the candidates, it's the treasurers, the fundraisers that may have made an innocent error, but then we're the ones that have to be saddled with, what did you do? Because I've had people out, are you going to jail? Well, for what? I mean, that's the public perception, because when it talks about ethics and fines, the public perception is much different than the reality of it. So I'd appreciate if we can somehow include that in there. I don't think it'd be that cumbersome to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Garcetti, followed by Ms. Hahn.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I just had a couple clarifying questions on the consultants piece. So how do we define, because oftentimes these are firms, and they might have 5 or 6 different people working on the design of a mailer. They might be living in different cities. My own campaign consultant is based here in Los Angeles, but the person who does all the graphic design and text for that lives in New York City. They sometimes print different places, and those print folks will be involved in changing some things and being involved. So how do we define that, and just, how can we make sure that it's as targeted as possible?
The short answer is we do define the terms very clearly in the ordinance so that it is clear. What we're looking to is the people who are involved in some sort of management way or strategy way. So for somebody who is simply, for example, doing polling and providing that information to a candidate, that would not be considered a campaign consultant.
A pollster's not?
If they're strictly doing only polling.
I don't
if
know
they
of any
have-
pollster that doesn't also do strategic advice.
Then they would be included in this. So if, I think what I'm trying to convey, if it's somebody who is simply, and their exclusive job is to do treasurer services, to comply with the Political Reform Act and city law, being a treasurer in and of itself doesn't trigger this. Being a pollster, if that is all they do, is provide polling services to a committee and no strategy, that would not include them. If there are sort of support services or ministerial kinds of services they provide, that doesn't trigger the requirement. What this captures is individuals who are involved in the campaign management or campaign strategy.
And if a person lives someplace else and can't come out for a training, that's in violation of what this would put forward?
Well, we'll have to obviously look at a variety of ways to deliver the information, the briefings that we do. In this day and age, it may not be possible to have everybody in the room at the same time, so I think we're going to have to look at having an online component or other means to get people there. Ideally, if they're operating in the city of Los Angeles and they are doing campaign management and strategy, we would look for the opportunity to have
Sure.
a face-to-face meeting with that individual, of course.
Can you, not to put you on the spot, but just for my vote, can you guarantee that that will be a part of it for folks that are not here? Will there be some sort of correspondence way or remote way of being able to be educated? Because I know as a candidate, whatever, I'm not going to be running for city council again, but it would certainly limit my choices if I know probably a number of consultants who don't live in Los Angeles, who probably couldn't come to Los Angeles, wouldn't come to Los Angeles for this. It would close off the options we would have as candidates in terms of who we could use, and probably allow some people here to have a little bit more of a monopoly on price and other things, so we'd kind of lose the competition.
Yes, I think we can do that.
You think? Or I need to know that we
Well,
can today.
the law says that we shall attend a training session. I just conferred with the city attorney as to whether that locks us into people being in a room with us, and he's affirmed that we do not have to have
Okay.
people in a room with us. So
and
we
you as
will
executive
do.
director are assuring me
Yes.
that we can? Okay.
Yes,
All right.
we will put together online
Okay.
materials for this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Madam President. While I have no problems with item 14, I think we should have mandatory online filing requirements for lobbying and quarterly disclosure statements. I think that's good. I think the residents of Los Angeles need to know immediately who's lobbying, how much money they're making lobbying, and what issues they're lobbying us on. I think that's important for accountability. I do have concerns with the idea of requiring by law campaign consultants and fundraisers to attend the training. And I think you've already heard some of the issues. Again, I don't know any polling firm that just does polling. They're on the phone all the time with your campaign managers talking about what the numbers mean and what strategy is. And I've also had people that have done mail that don't live here, that live in another city. I've also changed fundraisers midstream, or I've actually changed consultants midstream. What requirement, what consequence are you foreseeing for a consultant or a fundraiser not attending training, and who is ultimately responsible?
Well, again, with the friendly amendment or clarification by Councilmember Garcetti, obviously there would be the ability for people to do online, complete the requirement through online means. But the bottom line is, if somebody fails to do that, then this would be a violation of the campaign finance ordinance, as would any other violation. The person who has the responsibility is the consultant or the fundraiser to attend. The requirement is on them to attend.
So they would incur a fine?
They could.
What would the candidate's responsibility be in any of that? Since you said just about 5 minutes ago, ultimately the candidate is responsible for all these infractions in a campaign.
Well, the law in this ordinance would require that the candidate or the committee notify the Ethics Commission within 5 days of contracting with the consultant or fundraiser. Again, these are only paid individuals.
Right.
These are not volunteers.
So the candidate in the future would contact the Ethics Commission before we signed a contract, or after we've signed a contract.
Within 5 days,
and
that's
then
right.
what?
And then we would provide information to the consultant
Right,
or
that they have to
fundraiser who's
do this
registered.
training.
Well, we would provide them information about the city's ethics laws, and then we would provide them with the opportunity to either do the online training or to be at a
And
session.
then what?
And then if they did not do that, by the time the election rolled around, they could be subject to fines.
They could,
Yes, they could.
or not. Members, I understand what's behind this. I understand that some people have problems with their consultants and their fundraisers, and ultimately, I think, Dennis, a lot of us share your frustration that at the end of the day, it's unnerving, not only for us, but I've looked at some very, frankly, financially not wealthy candidates who have been fined enormous fees by the Ethics Commission, teachers who are barely making a living, people who didn't even have a job that decided they wanted to be in public service and give something back, and yet now they've got a $5,000, $10,000 fine through really no fault of their own because of a fundraiser or a consultant who may not have showed the Ethics Commission the piece of mail before they mailed it out. You know what we're doing here is we're actually encouraging wealthy people to run for office, and we're actually, the more rules we put on people, the less you're going to have the teachers, the nurses, the average people who want to run for public office, because these fines, by the way, these fines happen after the campaign is over, your campaign account is closed, and I have a teacher right now who's trying to figure out how to raise $5,000 to pay a fine, again, through no fault of his own. It was a fundraising error, a treasurer error. I think this might be going one step too far. I think all candidates who run for office, it's their responsibility, ultimately, to run a clean campaign. It's their responsibility to hire the kind of fundraisers, consultants, treasurers that know the rules, that can be sent. I think the first part of your statement is accurate. Everybody that we hire, you should email them all the rules and regulations of the City of Los Angeles. But I think that's enough. I think requiring consultants and fundraisers to come on a Saturday morning is really not practical. And I think we're a little bit overstepping our bounds in terms of those industries and those professionals who have spent a lifetime, doing these jobs, and ultimately it's up to the candidate to decide whether or not everybody's following the rules. So I think 14 is right on. I think 13 goes a little bit too far out of our boundaries in terms of trying to require people to go through a Saturday morning training. I just don't think that's where we ought to be going. So I'm going to be voting no on that one.
Mr. Weiss, followed by Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. And I very much appreciate what Ms. Hahn said and what Mr. Garcetti said. I want to follow up on some of the points that both of you raised. If I could direct your attention, Ms. Pelham, to section 49.7.9, the section 1 that's before us now. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. This one says, every candidate, treasurer, and compensated campaign consultant and fundraiser shall attend a training session. That's what it says, right?
That's correct.
And are you listening to me? You can listen. Do you want time to talk to your lawyer?
No, I'm listening to you, council member.
Okay. It says shall attend in this proposed ordinance, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any, and shall is a mandatory word, correct?
As I understand it, yes.
And what is the common sense meaning of the word attend?
I believe it means people being in a room at the same time.
Okay. And Mr. Michelson?
No, Harit Trivedi from the City Attorney's Office.
Okay, Mr. Trivedi. My understanding of the word attend is what Ms. Pelham's is, which means to attend in person. Is that your understanding of the meaning of the word attend?
I think the original question from Mr. Garcetti was for people who are not in the jurisdiction, and so there would be...
But I'm sorry. Could you just answer my question? Is that your understanding of the word attend?
Attend typically means in the same room or at a particular meeting. Yes.
So, Ms. Pelham, will this ordinance require all treasurers and compensated campaign consultants to attend training sessions in person?
That is the way it was drafted, and yes. And the question that Councilmember Garcetti asked is whether we would consider including an online component, and my answer to that was that we would.
I'm asking you a different question, which is, does this ordinance require treasurers and compensated campaign consultants to attend in person the training programs?
Yes.
Okay. So if that's the law, you can't then decide that this law really, or can you? I mean, can you decide when some laws mean what they say and when some laws don't quite mean what they say? Do you have that authority as part of your job?
We have the authority to interpret and enforce the law, yes.
Okay, so when you have a law that says shall attend, you have the authority to interpret that to mean something other than shall attend?
Council member, if the council...
Is that true? When there's something that says shall attend, you have the authority to decide when that shall really isn't a shall and when that attend really isn't an attend?
We have the authority to make sure that people get the information they need through the law, and we've cooperated with committees over time to make sure that they have their individuals at whatever session. Has this required people to be in a room with our staff to get the information? Yes. If the council feels that that language is ambiguous and you would like us to clarify it through a change in the law, we would be happy to take a look at doing that. What I was referring to Councilmember Garcetti's question was simply the response that we would be willing to develop an online component to help people comply with this requirement, since it's obviously something that is very near and dear to many campaigns' hearts, which is why the ordinance is before you.
See, with all due respect, I think intellectually and logically, the subject is exactly the reverse, which is, you are correct. It is reasonable, if I can have order in the room, Madam Chair. It is reasonable to have a rule that requires people affiliated with campaigns to learn the rules in one way or another. That is a reasonable rule to have, and it's reasonable for you to do what you do. The problem is, if we pass a law that says shall attend, one day, you or your staff may be reasonable about it. One day, you or your staff may choose to have a different reading of it. And what's to protect people as to how the law is going to be applied? I mean, it seems to me, if it's your intent in recommending to us that people be in the room, you should sit here and say that we should pass the law as drafted shall attend. If it's your intent that there ought to be a more reasonable manner in requiring that this training to occur, you or the city attorney's office ought to propose that language so that we could adopt language that means exactly what we intend. What should we do here?
Well, I believe if the council has an opinion, this would be the time to voice it and to express it either through a friendly amendment, or you could certainly send it back to the Ethics Commission. And if you'd like to ask the commission to consider that pointed question, we could certainly do that and bring any different language forward.
Now, with respect to the definition of the term compensated campaign consultant, Ms. Hahn asked a series of questions. First of all, she asked about a pollster. A pollster under this ordinance would be required to attend the session, correct?
A pollster whose sole duty is to provide polling services would not be required to attend. So a pollster who does other things, including campaign management or campaign strategy, would be. They would be subject to the requirement.
Sorry, where does it say that about a pollster?
On page 2 of the draft ordinance, under section 2A, at the bottom of that paragraph, it says attorneys, I'll read it in full. The term campaign consultant does not include persons who are employees of a campaign consultant and whose sole duties are clerical. An employee of a campaign consultant who does not personally provide campaign consulting services to the candidate, attorneys who provide only legal services, accountants who provide only accounting services, and pollsters whose sole duty is to provide polling services, or treasurers who provide only those services that are required of treasurers pursuant to the Political Reform Act.
And puts the poll out in the field and gets the results, and then tells the campaign, here are the results of the poll, that would be, quote-unquote, solely providing polling services, and that that wouldn't trigger this requirement, correct?
I think that's a fair assessment, yes.
Let's say the pollster does a poll in January and then participates in campaign strategy meetings in February, March, and April as part of the campaign. That would then trigger this requirement, would it not?
Yes, I believe it would.
Now, what about other sort of consultants along the lines that Ms. Hahn was talking about, people who participate in media strategy, who might have offices in New York or Washington or what have you, who participate in discussions with a campaign throughout the course of a campaign? Would they be required to attend the training sessions under this proposed ordinance?
Yes, under B, I think under 2B, those services would be captured.
As long as they are compensated. So the minute anyone is paid to provide service to a campaign that is non-staff related, as you say, not the clerical person who works for the consultant. The minute they're paid to provide some sort of intellectual capital to the campaign, they're captured by this requirement. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
Okay. No further questions right now.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, followed by Mr. Rosendahl.
Well, I think my questions ran along the same lines as Mr. Weiss's, and it shows truly an inexperience on the part of the staff of the Ethics Commission to understand what a campaign is all about. These are people that are giving advice to a campaign that really have nothing to do with the issues you're trying to attack. You're concerned about financial dealings and campaigns. I could have a printing consultant down in San Diego that's doing my printing, and if he says to me, you just pay me to do your printing, but really you ought to move this picture over there because it has a greater impact. Now he's under an ordinance. It's a stupid way to do things. And I was sitting here saying, well, I can support this. And the more I heard, the more unrealistic it is in the real world of campaigns out there. And I think you really need to retool this. My biggest objection is, I sat here and I asked my colleagues, who's got a copy of this ordinance? And no one seems to have a copy of it around here. And you're asking me to vote on something I have not read or seen. I can't do that. And so I'm going to vote no today if we're forced to vote no, just because you're asking me to vote on an ordinance I haven't read or seen, has not been delivered to my office, it's not in my briefing for the day, nobody in my staff has seen it, and nobody else around here seems to have seen it except those that just went up and asked you for a copy of it. So I think there's two problems. One, you want us to vote on something we haven't seen, and secondly, it's just not practical in the real world of politics. It doesn't attack the real problem you've identified in a realistic way. There's too many people that work on campaigns that have little tiny issues that have nothing to do with the issues that you're trying to address. And I think you're just making this overall too cumbersome for campaigns and not doing what you're supposed to do, and that is really look at the ethical behavior of the campaign. That's what the main consultant does, and that's the person you ought to hold responsible for all those other myriad of people that they funnel information up to that make those final decisions. And I think you need to go back and do that. And if you're not willing to do that, then I'll vote no on it. So thank you.
Just a point of information, Council. There was a transmittal from the City Attorney's Office on July 1st, 2005 for Council File number 03-0491, and we also sent a transmittal letter over on February 16th, 2005 outlining the initial policy. It was sent from the City Attorney's Office to the City Council.
To the Council. So the clerk has it, but the Council members don't.
Apparently, if that's what you
you.
don't have in front of you today.
I'm glad you pointed that out, but the point is, there's 13 of us sitting here today, or whatever the number is today, that haven't seen it. And so somewhere in the system, it got messed up, and we don't have it, and I can't vote on that.
That's unfortunate.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl, followed by Mr. Labange.
We're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and we're also looking at how many angels on the top of a pin. It's getting down to the point of ridiculousness, some of these things. I hired Smith Kaufman to do my books, and I know half the time they're trying to figure out what the rules are, just the rules, to follow within the rules. So I know in a sincere effort, when a candidate is out there and truly believes in communicating, that there might be even some violations of what we go through without us even knowing it. And they say ignorance is no excuse, for the law. So first, the laws that we do have in place on ethics regarding us have to be simple. I don't want to always have to hire an attorney to interpret things for me. I'd like to be able to read things. So just as an overall judgment, that's another reason why I'm for clean money, just to get the whole darn thing out. My suggestion on this, since we haven't seen these documents and a lot of questions of my colleagues here raise some significant issues, though I might say that I think consultants who are involved in issues with us should be under the light as much as everybody else, because it's all part of the process. So I'm going to suggest that I refer to Mr. Labange, who will have more to say on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. You're the Executive Director of the Ethics Commission, correct?
Last I checked.
Good, okay, good. I'm a councilman. Just a question, am I an ethical councilman?
You really want an answer?
Yeah.
Yes, Councilman, I think that...
Okay. I just wanted to say that, because I don't want to be afraid. I remember the Ethics Commission first came around when it was established in the early 90s. I was the first candidate in the city's history to get matching funds, okay? And I got results happen later on. All things happen for a reason. But also, I believe it's important that we have discussions, because a lot of people play hard and fast in this business of politics. And I think it's a suggestion here from a lot of questions, because what is the date, Madam Clerk, of this original motion of this? Do you know the date of the original motion? What's the date of the original motion?
In March 2003 was your original proposal.
2003, and it's November 2000, almost November 2005. So I think this whole issue, my issue, I want it to go back to your commission. Let's rework it. Let's get some input from people who, Jack, you just said you just saw this here, is that correct? No, but you just saw it now? You've been following it? Yeah, to go back and to circulate it and come up with a solution that would work. I also think, if I would like to ask too, is to ask that the Ethics Commission move to the third floor of City Hall instead of being up on the top. I also think the Ethics Commission should have public information right out this door or at the city clerk's counter on the third floor by the bridge, and all that be transparent. Because I think sometimes when you're away from the movement of the City Hall, it doesn't, the greatest thing about the building is that we all meet somewhere on the third floor, and that information is knowledge is power, and it's transparent. So with that in mind, I ask that this go back to the Ethics Commission and hope that it could come back, because I know this got stuck in committee for a long time. What's the schedule on that, Madam Clerk?
The Rules Committee meets on the second Wednesday of every month.
So this will go back to the Rules Committee, which will then probably send it back to the Ethics Commission.
We could send it directly to the Ethics Commission if you would like, without it, and then it coming back to the Rules Committee after the Commission has considered it.
Okay. I think we'll send it back to Rules, because they had it for so long, and then it goes to Ethics Commission. And then at Rules Committee, we'd have an opportunity to voice our concerns on this, so that would be a way to do it. I think that would work.
So, okay, great, to the Rules Committee. Mr. Zine, was that your interest as well? Yes. We both sit on that, yes.
Now,
we can spend more time together, Mr. Zine.
And that's on item number 13 only, correct? Item number 14?
That is correct. There was no problem with item number 14. So this item, item number 13, will be referred back to the Rules Committee and ultimately go back to the Ethics Commission. So the item now before us is item number 14, 13 to be continued and 14 to be considered. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll. On 14.
11 ayes.
11 ayes. Thank you.
And the ordinance goes over for 1 week.
That's correct, but item 13 will be sent back to Rules Committee. Next order of business, please.
I believe on number 8, Mr. Parks has a verbal amendment on that, and that's just to change the amount of the assessment, or excuse me, of the fee.
Yes.
Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. Just would like to make an amending motion to move to reduce the annual inspection fees to $35.52 per unit per year.
Okay, that is your verbal amendment to item number 8. Colleagues, item number 8 is now before us.
And I'm sorry,
Yes.
Madam President, just to let council know that the clerk does have a copy of the ordinance with the correct amount on it.
Great, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes. Oops.
11 ayes.
Mr. Garcetti, did you have a quick ask question?
It was just a clarification.
Mr. Parks?
Mr. Parks, it was an animal inspection fee? Is that what you...
No, this was the...
oh, okay. I
Annual.
was reading the transliteration. It came up as an animal inspection fee.
No, this was item 8 dealing with the SCEP fee.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. That item is now approved. I'd like to recognize Mr. Weiss for an introduction.
Thank you, Madam President. If I could ask you folks to rise. Colleagues, we're joined today, stand up so people can see you. We're joined today by an interesting group of folks from Nigeria who are here in the States as part of a program sponsored by an entity in my district, the International Center for Education and Youth Development. We have with us here 37 kids and along with their 7 adult chaperones from Ebonyi State, Nigeria, who have been selected for this program in America through a merit-based program in Nigeria. They're here for several weeks in Los Angeles, learning about all sorts of institutions in Los Angeles. They're going to visit museums, aquariums, the zoo, Mr. Labange, and a whole host of other places. Then they're going to go back to Nigeria and hopefully integrate things and ideas and concepts that they've learned here in Los Angeles into their lives in their country, where I have every expectation they're going to grow up to be leaders. Agodi Alagbe is the president of the Institute, and she's here with them. I'm just delighted to have you in the district, and we're delighted to have you here in Los Angeles City Hall. Hope you get a lot out of your trip to Los Angeles, kids.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Welcome to Los Angeles and to our City Council chambers. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item, Madam President, is item number 17. That was called special by Councilmember Rosendahl, and there is an amending motion that has been distributed to the council members.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, Madam President. Could we ask the ITA to come forward, please?
Thera. Sorry, where item?
Farah is overwhelmed by the Nigerian students. I must say Nigeria is a very vibrant nation. I've had the pleasure of being there. Explain to us this item, 17.
The item initially came as 311, and that is your one call to City Hall. I think, Councilmember Rosendahl, you had an amending motion to offer this information via Channel 35, which is a great idea, and I would even recommend, besides just in city text, perhaps even doing a public service announcement.
I agree, and I'm saying Channel 35 and 36 as a public service. When I was out on the campaign trail, I said to my seniors, the more information, as Mr. Labange says, is empowering people. And if we use 35 and 36 to get messages out on drugs, what the value of them are, where they can be discounted. And I'll just throw in a little plug. We have 2 props on the ballot, 78 and 79. 79 is a real viable option for people to get discounted drugs going forward, but that's not the point of this friendly motion, and I ask my colleagues to go along with me on this, to use Channel 35 and 36 in getting the messages out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That item and the amending motion is now before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item has been approved. Next order of business, please.
Next item, Madam President, is item number 21, and that was called special by Councilmember Reyes.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. The report before you, the Northeastern University Center notes that 93,000 16 to 24-year-olds are not employed or not in school in the city of Los Angeles. 93,000. What this motion does, it essentially directs that we look for $2 million to augment the Summer Youth Employment Program. That'll decrease a great pressure that's being felt by the youth who are trying to find a way to make a living and essentially get on their feet and learn about work ethic and getting involved with the job market. What I found lacking in this report and directive, I'm asking my colleagues to join me on this, is to amend a friendly amendment and to identify the general fund as a resource for finding the $2 million. Right now the directive is very vague. It says look for the funds, but it doesn't say from where. I want to include the general fund as a resource base for this $2 million. in my mind, when you look at and sense the grief of Ms. McConnell and what happened to her son, it's an example of the type of support we can lend to these communities who have the greatest level of poverty, the greatest number of violent incidents. And when you look at it, you realize that our youth have a tremendous amount of idle time. So these jobs that we can create will come back and benefit us 100-fold in many different ways. So I believe it's good use of resource. I just want to make sure that directive is clear, that we also consider the general fund as a source for the $2 million. And that's the reason why I call this special and ask for an aye vote on this friendly amendment. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. That item, colleagues, is now before us. Yes, Mr. Reyes.
And this is with a friendly amendment.
With the friendly amendment. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item has been approved. Madam Clerk, I think our next item is item number 22, called special by Mr. Weiss, and you'd like to have a public comment period. Would you like to have that first?
Yeah, let's have the public comment period first, but I would like to formally move before us the Plum Committee report. It's not listed on the agenda as such for some reason. Let's formally, it's listed as approving the action of the APC. Plum overturned an APC here, so let's move the report and findings of Plum, so that's formally before us.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. If I could ask the members of the public that are present today, I'll call 3 members at a time: Greg Temkin, Miriam Backrack, and Alicia Tolbert. If you could come to the podium, please. Mr. City Attorney, I'd like to say them first.
And just a reminder, council members, this is a quasi-judicial matter requiring a fair hearing.
My name is Miriam Backrack. I live at 8717 Airdrome Street, Los Angeles, just down the block from the location of the construction under question. I attended the original hearing, the appeal, at least one local meeting with the developer, and the Plum Committee meeting. Zoning Administrator Daniel Green clearly laid out the hearing findings. The Q conditions were enacted by the City Council in 1992 to limit uncontrolled development in this residential neighborhood. The only building that's gone up since then with similar variances requested was built by this developer himself. We have no idea why it was permitted because we never were aware of any public hearings. Why exactly did the Zoning Commission overturn the denial? No explanation was offered in response to Mr. Green's reasoned and explicit findings for denial of variance. A few words about that appeal meeting. By the time our turn came up, the presiding commissioner decided to limit us to 1 minute each, in spite of the fact that after 4 hours of waiting, half of our speakers had to leave for another community meeting. By contrast, the landmark representatives' documents were personally reviewed, and we had no opportunity even to point out the correction that the neighborhood council did not support them as claimed. What Commissioner Ziegler failed to acknowledge when referring to a general housing shortage is that we are not asking for fewer units. We're asking for the Q conditions to be upheld. I was also astounded to learn that the Commission seemed to think it could unilaterally override those Q conditions, which were set by the LA City Council. I sincerely hope that the council members present today will see the logic and justice in these Q conditions, Zoning Administrator Daniel's Green report, and the support that the Plum Committee gave us in a 3-0 vote. We ask for your support by requiring that the developer build according to code without any special unwarranted exceptions. Thank you.
My name is Greg Temkin. I'm a resident of the Crestview Association where this affects as well on Shenandoah Street, and I'd like to thank the council for their time. Again, as a long time, about an 18-year resident in the community, there is no reason, except for one strange, incidence of this variance to be given, why it should have ever been allowed in the first place. It was an anomaly, was overturned unanimously by Plum, and should be upheld here today. The community is a special community. This neighborhood is a special neighborhood in that its demographics have a lot to do with certain people for religious purposes, do a lot of walking. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic in this neighborhood. This certain variance that's being asked for is being asked for a setback that's much closer to the street than is allowed in the rest of the neighborhood. In doing so with the underground parking, there's a blind spot of anyone coming out. There's a similar development nearby that this person has done, and it creates an awful blind spot. And given the fact that this community has a lot of people, as I said, the pedestrian community, a lot of walking and this sort of thing, it is just an incredible danger as well. And there's just no reason, except for profit of the developer, that this variance should be granted. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker. Followed after the next speaker, we'll have Abraham Schoenwald, Terry Ring Schoenwald, and Beth Ryan.
Good morning, Council. My name is Alicia Talbert. I am the Vice President of the Sorrow Neighborhood Council. I am representing them here today. I am also on the Land Use Committee for South Robertson. Both of those entities have voted against this project. It has been in discussion and has been presented to the Council and to the Land Use Committee several times. I wanted to let you know, Councilman Labange and all the rest of the Council people, how well the Neighborhood Council system is working. This is a prime example of the work that we do. This development was brought to us. We looked at the specs, we looked at the queue conditions that were enacted by the council earlier that the developer would like waived for this project. We offered to resolve the issue with the developer. He did not take our suggestions, and that's why we're here today. We took several votes in the Land Use Committee and ultimately presented it to the Neighborhood Council, who has rejected the idea of waiving these queue conditions, and we hope that you will stand by us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, council members. My name is Abraham Schoenwald. I live on 1743 Shenandoah Street. I'm here today on behalf of many people who could not be here today. There are senior citizens who are going to it's the first day of Sukkot, the Jewish holiday, and they're not here. And they don't drive, they walk. And the queue condition will protect these people because the particular developer would like to build his building right on the pavement, which will endanger many old people who walk or are hard of hearing and will not hear cars coming out of this building directly into the pavement. Many kids who walk to school in the morning, and I hope that you will upheld the queue condition and support the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam President and council members. My name is Terry Ring Schoenwald. I also live at 1743 South Shenandoah Street, and I am the former president of Crestview and currently the liaison for Crestview with the LAPD. The queue conditions adopted by the City Code in 1992 were for the safety and the quality of life of 14 blocks in and around the Crestview neighborhood. They are bounded by Pico on the north, La Cienega Boulevard on the east, Pickford Street on the south, and Robertson Boulevard on the west. We are, as has been stated, a walking neighborhood, and that is in all weather. And we do not want anything built in this neighborhood that is only 15 feet from the street, as Landmark West Associates variance requests. We have asked all developers to build to code in this neighborhood. 2 blocks from the site of 1518 South Shenandoah is Young Israel of Beverly Hills Synagogue. On Pico, people walk. To the bus on Pico, people walk. School children catch a school bus on Shenandoah and Pico. Many marketers, go to the lot market and they walk to and from the market. People walk with strollers. People walk with toddlers. People of all ages walk their dogs. Children roller skate and ride their bikes. 2 blocks west of the proposed site on Robertson Boulevard is the Sikh Temple, across the street from Robertson Recreational Children's Program, down the street from the Christian Coptic Orthodox Church and Anshe Emet Jewish Synagogue. All people walking. And across the street is the Eula Girls School, which has very little parking lot because the families walk to the school. There are many shops, many places that people walk, including 1 block further south to the Los Angeles City Library on Robertson. This is but a sample of the walking people do in this area, and for safety reasons, we want everyone to abide by the queue conditions. The lots Landmark West Associates are developing are rectangular in shape and do not warrant any special variances. Please uphold the queue conditions and deny any variance to Landmark West Associates. Our neighbors are counting on you to continue their safety and the quality of life. I thank you all for listening today, and please uphold the Plum Committee's decision 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker. She'll be followed by John Beret, Kevin Sutherland, and Bernard Middleman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and council members. My name is Beth Ryan. I live at 1626 South Shenandoah Street. I am the current president of the Crestview Neighborhood Association, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of not just our community, but also the community where this building sits. I personally have attended 6 meetings with the developer in an attempt to come to some form of compromise. Unfortunately, the developer never took advantage of providing anything that would go toward helping us to be able to support this. Our appeal has been supported by Jack Weiss, the councilman for our district, Council District 5, the Los Angeles Plum Committee that met last Tuesday. The South Robertson Neighborhood Council has also voted on our behalf, as has their Land Use Committee, and 220 residents have signed a petition, which I've given in a packet to everybody. I've also provided a satellite shot of the community, so you can see that there are limited buildings affected by these queue conditions. In 1992, the city officials voted on and approved queue conditions for the area south of Pico to Pickford and between Robertson and La Cienega. Since that time, this area has maintained its aesthetic quality. Landmark West Associates are asking for variances to be granted, which will drastically alter this neighborhood permanently. We are not opposed to development. However, this building will sit on a double lot over 100 feet in width and stand 45 feet tall. We are asking that the queue conditions remain intact, which will ensure that this building of such a large mass will be at least 20 feet from the street. The developer is asking to be only 15 feet from the street and is required to have the necessary setback of 10 feet for any building taller than 35 feet in height. The developer is asking for this variance to be waived. Over 80% of the buildings in this area are only 1 or 2 stories in height. Only 3% are 4 stories, and they were all built before 1992 and sit more than 20 feet from the street, and only 11 buildings occupy a double-wide lot. Granting these variances will not alter the number of units being added to the market. The developer has repeatedly stated that he can build a 16-unit building by right. We respectfully ask that you help us ensure the safety and preserve the aesthetic integrity of this area and uphold the queue conditions. Thank you very much for your time.
And I know yes, if we could wrap up. We're over our 10 minutes, but we have 3 other speakers. If you want to be brief, we just have the last 3 speakers.
I'll be brief and fast. My name is Kevin Sutherland. I live at 1612 South Holt. I'm an architect, and I've practiced in the city of Los Angeles for the last 12 years, including employment in the offices of Frank Gehry and Gensler. Upon careful examination of the issues relating to the requested variance, and in light of the developer's previous variance requests, I can only conclude that these requests are not driven by any form of hardship, but are simply an attempt to circumvent the existing zoning laws in the pursuit of maximum financial gain by an entity that has no long-standing or lasting commitment to the sensitive and lawful development of the neighborhood in question. In my present capacity as an architect, I'm currently involved with 6 different developers doing 8 different market rate condominium projects in the city of Los Angeles, West Hollywood, Hancock Park, and Echo Park. Not a single one of these developers in any one of their projects has requested a variance. As you know, the variance process is reserved for undue hardship. All of the developers that I work with have purchased their properties in the last 2 years, and they are all making significant profits by developing these projects by right and within the existing zoning laws. To grant these variances, which are completely unsubstantiated, as shown by the variance report by Daniel Green, would be an abuse of the established land development standards and a travesty of the zoning code enforcement process. What's the point of establishing development standards if they are so easily dismissed by those we trust to enforce them? The fact that on every level the arguments used to advance this request were found to be utterly baseless in the report further illuminates how egregious this request is. As an architect, I'm strongly committed to the proper development of land within established neighborhoods and believe that an increase in density is the only sensible way to deal with our city's inevitable growth. However, to utilize this variance process to grant special favors which undermine existing urban fabrics and allow overbuilding outside the
And if we just ask you to conclude, sorry. Just if you could conclude, sorry. One last point.
Please treat this decision with the care you would give it if it were your own neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Barty. I have been a property owner of apartment buildings in the area for the past 10 years. I support the appeal filed by Beth Ryan on behalf of the Crestview Neighborhood Council. The overbuilding of the area of large unaffordable housing takes away from the character and suburban feel of the neighborhood, the exact reason the queue conditions were originally enacted. There was simply no grounds for the Central Area Planning Commission to have reversed the decision of the zoning administrator to deny the request for the variance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker, which again, brevity, because we're over the time period for the public.
Right, I'll make mine short. I had more to say, but to sum it up, I'm in support of the appeal of the Neighborhood Association and the original decision of the zoning administrator. The queue conditions were set up to stop building projects from getting too large and to keep the integrity of the neighborhood. And this particular application for variance simply fails to meet the proper requirements for approval. I'm astounded that that the zoning administrator's decision was thrown out by the committee. In any case, the 2 requirements are a strict hardship, which this is no strict hardship. The only hardship is he won't be able to make as much profit as he'd like. But given the 2 lots, he could still build and he could still make profit. To sum it all up, the applicant did not meet the requirements for the variance and should conform to the established code. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the folks from the South Robertson and Crestview communities for being here. There's not much left to be said. Thank you for your excellent presentations here and in committee. I want to thank Mr. Reyes and Mr. Cardenas on the committee. And finally, Mr. Green, I see you in the back. You did a superb job on this matter when you had it below and then again in committee. And so I would move that we adopt the Plum report. Although I will say, Mr. Reyes, and I don't know if you've ever noticed this before, I'm just noticing this for the first time, and I'm sure it has happened before and just escaped our eye. My constituents pointed out to me that item 22, as it was written on the agenda, had as its first recommendation, 1, adopt the findings of the Central Area Planning Commission as the findings of the council, which of course was not our action in Plum. Then I look back at our Plum report, and our Plum report just has as its first item 1, adopt the findings of the CAPC as the findings of the council. And then it gets to item 2, which is our substantive action in Plum. And I guess I would just ask the clerk's office, when they prepare these documents, to be a little more careful, because we did not adopt any action of the central APC at Plum. In fact, what we did at Plum was what is listed as item 2 in our Plum report, and then the substance of the remaining portion of the Plum report indicates that. I don't think this is a case where we have to be careful or concerned about that, but I just think it's something where I would just, I guess if you could just communicate to our clerk in Plum, oftentimes we do, as a matter of course, sustain an APC, but when we don't, I think we just need to be careful about how it's drafted. And that's the only reason I mentioned that. This is something we need to discuss further, but I just...
No, I just wanted to be clear in that when we talk about the findings in of itself can support our decision, even though we come to different conclusions. But you're right, it is misleading in how it's being interpreted, so maybe there's a way to phrase it and keep our legal consistencies intact.
I think something just maybe, frankly, at committee this afternoon, we'll just maybe mention it, because I would hate to see a case arise where a later court looks at our documents and is confused about what we were trying to do, when in fact, if you'd been at Plum, there would be no confusion. There's no confusion now. I'm sure we will adopt as a full council what Plum adopted below. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss and Mr. Reyes. Colleagues, that item is now before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That matter has been approved as the Plum Committee report. Next order of business, please.
Next item, Madam President, items 35 through 41 were called special by Councilmember Zine, and I believe Councilmember Labange also called 36 special.
Correct. Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there a representative from the City Personnel Department to respond to these requests? If not, I'd like to hold it on the table because they're supposed to be here.
Do we have any representatives from the Personnel Department here? Please come forward to the desk.
You can take the table up front, up here.
Please sit at the table.
Center table. You're with the Personnel Department? Okay, none of these items went to Personnel Committee. You can have a seat. None of these items went to Personnel Committee, and none of them were reviewed along the path. And the question is, because of the recess, there was insufficient time to send them to Personnel Committee, and they've come here today, and there's some issues and questions since there wasn't a review on approving the requests that are here. So can you take one by one as we have them on the schedule? 36 will be the city planning, principal city planner.
Okay, I would ask that...
35?
35 is a project coordinator for Dunn.
Okay.
I think he'd like you to just go ahead and begin, sir, on item number 35 and explain the action that's before us on 35.
Okay, so item 35 is Department of Neighborhood Empowerment is requesting the exemption of project coordinator position, and this position is responsible for working out in the neighborhood councils, and from the personnel department's point of view, we support this exemption. The class of project coordinator is typically a class that is exempted and used throughout the city in different capacities. Exempting this particular position would enable the department to select someone with a particular knowledge, skills, and abilities in order to perform the duties that are required.
Okay, it was previously exempt on September 24, 2002. And
That's correct.
what has happened to that position? What happened to the person in that position?
I believe that person was promoted, but maybe someone from...
Okay, well, see, you're supposed to be prepared for these, and I don't want to belabor the council if you're not prepared. And if you're not prepared to answer the questions, then we can hold it on the table. But there's a number of questions that we have regarding all these positions that didn't go through any review committee, and we just don't blindly approve positions because there's a factor involved, and we have 150 that we can have an exempt. These are all asked to be exempt positions. And traditionally, they get grilled in committee, and then once that's done, then it comes here, and it gets approved without any kind of conversation. So that's the reason why we're doing this here, is that it was not sent to any committee. So if you want to do some more research and hold it on the table, we can do that. But like I say, I don't want to embarrass or belabor the time.
Yeah, perhaps that would be the best course of action, or if the department is represented, they may be able to answer some of those particular questions.
Well, the problem is they're all approved by the Personnel Department without any other review from any other department. And I'm just going by the one-pager that we have, since it never came to committee. And being the chair of the Personnel Committee, we look at each and every one of these and make sure that there's justification. And when we're exempting something, then that means it's not a civil service position, and it falls out of the lines where the promotional process may come into play. So there's a lot of factors that we're concerned with. So if we want to hold it and do some more research, we can do that and bring it back. Madam Chair, just to expedite this process through, let's do that. We'll hold these.
Hold these items and have it go.
Well, the Personnel Department's got to respond to it, not to the specific departments. You can ask them to help you.
Do you just want to continue this for one day?
Let's do that, and then
Okay.
do some more research, and then we can, if you want to meet with my staff and get briefed on all the questions that we have regarding this, and that way everyone can save time, and we won't be here for an hour just going through the process.
And
All right.
and just to let council know, tomorrow is the last day.
I understand that. Okay, we'll do it. We'll continue till tomorrow.
And
Madam
Mr. Zine,
Chair.
I know we also have some representatives from the airport department that were here on both sides. Do you want to hear that item today?
Let's
You want to
just,
hold all of
no,
them?
we'll bring it all back tomorrow.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilmember.
The reason why this was all brought by Personnel Department. It didn't go through any other department. And that's why I want to have it in one package. So we'll just continue till tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Those items will be a continued item. Mr. LeBon, you had a question on 36. You'll hold it for tomorrow?
For tomorrow, but I want to thank Mr. Reyes for it because it's real important.
Yes, Mr. Reyes.
I do have questions on 36. We have the planning department and personnel here, and that way I can just address it now and still table it for tomorrow since we have the director
Do you want to
here.
hear from those? Mr.
Yes.
Zine? Mr. Reyes, I think, would like on the...
36.
On 36, which is for the planning
Right.
department position, says both are here and like to at least hear from them today so they don't have to come back tomorrow. Is that
Right,
correct?
exactly.
And similarly, that may be, I think, what Lawa was interested in as well.
Well, I don't know, Tom. We haven't reviewed it.
No, we have
till
not
just now.
approved.
We're
Mr.
not
Zine has
approving anything.
recommended we hold all of them until tomorrow. I think Mr. Reyes and others would like, if the department and the personnel are here, that hear from them today, then we could vote on it tomorrow.
I just didn't want to belabor this point for an hour or so to
I understand,
expedite.
but I have the staff here now. I can just ask a couple of questions and move on.
That's fine. And then we'll still continue tomorrow and ask those
Right.
questions. That's fine. Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay?
So if I can
So,
ask the
planning department, if they could come up.
item 36, please.
The planning department.
Colleagues, the reason why I want to thank Councilor Labange for calling this special is that this is a position that deals with the Office of Historic Resources. The position is being considered for principal city planner, which is a pretty high ranking within the department itself. And my question to the planning department is that when we look at this position, can you share with us, well, let me back up. My concerns are that in dealing with historic preservation, we've been going through a dynamic called gentrification in many of the lower income, poor areas in the city. We've had a development process that's essentially eliminating housing for many of the folks who could afford it at one time. And the kinds of skill sets, the toolbox we're looking for is to allow for this versatile individual to be able to address these kinds of concerns. And I want to hear from your point of view what priorities you've had or you're setting on the table in dealing with these issues from your point of view. If you can, sir.
Councilmember Reyes, members of the council, I'm Mark Winogrand, your Director of Planning for now. And it is a very unusual position. This is the key position for Los Angeles' cultural heritage, historic preservation efforts. This person has to bring a wide range of skills, ranging from dealing with the multi-million-dollar Getty grant to dealing with the Cultural Heritage Commission, with the HPOZs, and also knowing in the specific that you were asking about, whether the historic preservation process is being used appropriately in less enfranchised areas, whether it is being abused in order to thwart reinvestment in those areas, or whether it should be used more and the resources and the understanding of how to use those tools is less sophisticated in those less enfranchised areas. It has to cover that gamut. It's part of the reason why it's a unique position. I'm out searching for a new director for the department for you in a permanent way, and I also think of this as it's like a mini director of all of the historic preservation efforts, and the person has to have a very wide range of skills. It's not just a promotion up from the counter to doing some cases to, oh, you get to do this. It's much more complicated.
Well, I in the past have put forth a motion where I was outlining a whole range of issues. We were looking at historic preservation in inner city neighborhoods and the need to increase access for persons with limited means to these efforts so that all people benefit. In other words, we know there are pools of resources in the state. There are different ways we can look at community development departments, CRA, and actually look at these institutions within the city family to augment and or again support those who have limited incomes in these historic structures. So that whole skill set is something that I'm seeking and making sure that we don't overlook and continue to penalize those who have the least in the city.
And we look forward to bringing the person who is identified forward to your committee so that they can understand your thoughts and goals as the person embarks on the effort. They have a lot of code-based stuff, and there are also very important philosophical issues, and that person needs to understand what the mayor and the council are looking for in those philosophical, so how do you apply all these rules approach.
Thank you, Mr. Winogrand. Son?
You may remember, Councilman, when we went through the Historic Preservation Task Force, we made commitments that this person would also help in the outreach to all communities to see what other mechanisms were out there to offset the economic impacts of creating historic preservations in the older neighborhoods. Again, it's a specialized person that can do this kind of a function and not just somebody that happened to be a planner at one point and is now doing cases or whatever else. So we're looking to reach out to everywhere, as Mark said, from the Getty study that we're involved in, as well as reaching out to the small communities around the city and all aspects of the city.
Thank you, Ms. Sun. From the personnel's point of view and just giving your professional assessment, does this position, does it fit being within the civil service or an exempt position as opposed to civil service? How do you weigh that out from the personnel department's point of view?
Normally, the principal city planner position would be one that we would examine for. And I guess it was back in March of 2005, the council did approve this position as a historic preservation manager, not as a new civil service class, but to do the function of a historic preservation manager. And the selection process was conducted, and there was not found to be persons with the kinds of skills and knowledges that they would need to really carry out your objectives in this position within city service.
So the versatility and the unique quality of this function lends itself to be exempt.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Colleagues, again, I know we have to table this for tomorrow until we see both items and deal with the rest of the process, but I do want to make a verbal motion tomorrow, but I just want to state that today, knowing we're going to act on it tomorrow, that we move to have personnel city planning departments report back to Plum in 90 days upon the selection of the principal city planner for the Office of Historic Resources, so that we can go through the status of the office and its work program, so we continue working together. So that way we are in concert and we are laying the issues of accountability and impact within our respective neighborhoods in place. So that will be for tomorrow. But just want to mull that over. Thank you very much. And
Thank you,
for coming
thank you,
down
Ms.
to
Reyes.
City
Don't
Hall.
leave yet. We have a couple council members that would like to ask you questions as well. Councilmember Labange, followed by Councilmember Rosendahl.
Thank you. And I just want to direct, Mr. Reyes, you support this position?
Yes.
And you support it as it's proposed through the mayor's office?
Right.
But you want your committee to hear back on an update as they get into it?
I want a clear picture of the function
Right.
of this position and how it's going to affect the issues that are very complicated throughout the spectrum of incomes within our city.
And this is after the planning department selects the person to do it, which is great. So keep that Plum Committee informed. Historic preservation is real important. We've been fighting a long time for it. Thank you, but keep them informed so they're on track of what direction they should take there. I appreciate that. And might I also add, we have some people came all the way from the airport that I'd like to give them a few minutes of my time. I'll stop now. And the Rec and Parks Department came a long way. Give them some of my time to tell us what they're thinking so they can save them tomorrow. Thank you, Madam President. I'll save my time, Madam Clerk.
We'll go ahead and hear from Mr. Rosendahl on the planning, and then we'll go to the airport. Mr. Rosendahl.
I'm very intrigued by this because in my district there are lots of issues about historical cultural preservation. Explain to me what this position will do for us.
Within the department, this is the key cultural heritage historic preservation person. The person and that effort is responsible for the designation of the buildings themselves as they come before the Cultural Heritage Commission, is responsible for all of the work which is then done on buildings which are proposed for, actually eligible for, or already designated under our provisions. Works with the rest of the department regarding all of the historic preservation overlay zones, is the department's, and in many ways the city's spokesperson regarding its cultural heritage historic preservation efforts, works with, identifies outside funders, works with those outside funders, like the multi-million-dollar Getty grant, to ensure that it's brought in, coordinated, and the work is done in a professional manner. And I'll bet I'm missing, and staffs the commission, and staffs the Cultural Heritage Commission, in addition to packaging all the material going to that commission, which I'm sure you know coming out of our district, yours and mine, is buried with items, staggering workload just going before that one commission.
Taking that a step further, the Getty money and the city money, it's about $5 million?
Correct.
And explain that money and how it's going to be used.
The Getty is giving us a $2.5 million grant towards $5 million over a 5-year period of time to do a citywide survey. This position and a couple other positions will be considered matching grant money. So it goes towards our share of the $2.5 million that the city has to raise to match the Getty's money. The idea is to know and identify where there are historic monuments around the city, so as development goes forward, it's not a last 25th hour situation. Oh, we didn't know it was a monument. There are lots of areas around the city we have not had a chance to go out and look at because of staffing needs, and the Getty's money will help provide some of that ability to at least have a bird's eye view of where these historic monuments are that we haven't found all over the city, because it's a pretty big city. Yeah. We now have 21 HPOZs, and I think it's 14 or 15 more on the books that my staff hasn't had a chance to do yet. And other areas that keep on coming up on a daily basis. I just found out about another motion yesterday that I didn't know about. So we're trying to get a step ahead, and that's where the Getty is supposed to be coming from. So we take a citywide perspective on HPOZs and not just a localized perspective. And the money is supposed to go in that direction. That's one of the major key assignments, and that's what this position will be the leader on. We do not have a high-level position in the planning department at this point in time to take this leadership role to work with the communities and to work with the private outside funding sources.
Well, this is music to my ears. One of the things I've been saying historically is this designation should happen early in a process rather than at the last minute. Will this give us a better sense of comfort that the moment a developer's looking at an area, we've either designated it or this is the first stop before you go to other stops within the process?
We're hoping for that. That's one of the major intents.
And an intentionally technical answer is that if it has been identified in a legitimate survey as potentially eligible for designation, it then assumes a lot of rights under the California Environmental Quality Act. And so just that survey, even if we have not completed the formal designation process, if it's in that list as potentially eligible, shifts it to a different category of review inside City Hall of potential development projects. So yes, it will go a long way.
Now, will this be an independent analysis for us elected? Like, I am conflicted all the time. I have a series of experts saying this, a series of experts saying that, and I have to play Solomon on these issues. Will this person, as a staffer, give us a lot of objective criteria to help us make decisions?
Are you talking about the new exempt staff person or the
exempt staff person?
Well, hopefully we are searching for someone who is savvy enough, professional enough in this field that absolutely that's what they will give you, that they're not going to be bending to any particular issue. I've just been helping Long Beach. I saw them hire somebody who was really in some ways just eaten alive by how difficult this process is. The person lasted less than a year, and they had to go up much higher in the world of historic preservation experts in order to find the right person for Long Beach. And it's the same thing here. You have to find someone who's savvy regarding historic preservation politics in order to give you neutral answers.
And talking about the politics of that, I'm under the impression that there are ordinances in other cities in the country that have a broader definition on this concept, which would allow for housing created in the 50s and the 60s that was affordable, unique, and special, so that people can be protected. One of my concerns in the 11th District is that bulldozers have more rights than people, and my people are being pushed out of their affordable housing, many of it historic, but we're not sure. Do we need a better ordinance that protects our people?
Well, we will be doing a citywide contextual statement, and that'll give us a basis of how to help make decisions on a localized basis. Right now, we don't have that on a citywide basis. We have it for the 20 HPOZs that exist, but we don't have it for the entire city. So that'll be a starting point. Plus, there are certain rules in the book which already exist. I mean, we also don't even know of all the historic preservation designations by the feds and by the state. And I have staff right now trying to decipher their 10,000 listings in their computer printouts. Again, information will make us more savvy of what's going on, and we can better respond to the needs of the individual area and community.
Like Lincoln Place is an example right now where the tenants there are threatened to be thrown out. The state has declared it historic, the city hasn't. I mean, it's a confusion. Would this help in that issue?
No.
Well, no, because the environmental, the only thing it does is it takes care of the secret aspects, and they already did the secret aspects. It doesn't then prevent you from taking an action where, in fact, the economic benefit of a Lincoln Place is better than saving the old building. That's a different decision that has to be made by the council and other decision makers.
The tenants are threatened to be thrown out under the Ellis Act, which is a state law which is intentionally disconnected from all land use proceedings, including historic designation, allowing a landlord to go out of business regardless of anything else, including any existing land use approvals with conditions. I can talk separately with you about that. That's a fascinating, that and the decontrol, recontrol both came out of the attempts to topple rent control and exchange. The Ellis Act and decontrol, recontrol came in as a kind of alternative strategy to the attempts in the late 80s, early 90s to topple rent control completely in the state. So that's what he's doing. He's exercising his rights under something which is completely disconnected from the land use entitlement process including the historic preservation land use entitlement process.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it is a disconnect, and
Yes.
obviously 58% of my people are renters, and I don't want to see them pushed out of the 11th district, and I'd like to find a way to give people a chance over bulldozers. Thank you all for that.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. We'll have Mr. Zine, and then we're going to do the airport, and this will be before.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment to my colleagues. The reason why we do these in Personnel Committee is to review the issues, to go through it in detail, so we don't belabor the point here in council. And I've been asked, and I wait at the airport 2.5 hours, so don't feel bad, Van Lewis, because when I go on an airplane, it takes 2.5 hours to get through that screening. We're also going to hear from the airport for about 5 minutes. We are going to continue these items till tomorrow. But the reason we do this in committee is we don't take the time here on a normal schedule. And because all these came through without committee, that's why we're doing it here. Thank you. Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So this item will be held over, but we thought we use your time wisely. If we could just take item number 38, if anyone has questions on the Director of Airport Security Services. Again, this will be continued tomorrow, but is there any questions for the airport staff that are here?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Paul Green, Chief Operating Officer at LAWA. This is Bayan Lewis, who is a consultant to my office, who's basically functioning somewhat in an acting capacity in the very position that's before you today.
Thank you. I know Mr. Weiss had a quick question he wanted to ask. Mr. Weiss.
I'll be extremely brief. You guys have been here a long time. We've had the discussions before in committee. I was concerned initially that this was being handled as strictly an internal matter where the department would just look internally. That's not appropriate to the job. This will ensure that we can actually look outside and get a real person of quality and find someone who can mesh with the other more significant security services in the area. That's it.
Absolutely. We will be doing a national search if approved, and we're looking for very, very strong leadership capabilities to do just that, Councilman Weiss.
Thank you. Then there are no other questions. We assume if there are any questions, people can ask you before tomorrow, and this item will go before the council tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. So those items 35, Mr. LaBonge.
Rec and Parks came all the way over. They're not in the building anymore. Do we have a minute with them?
Do we have any questions on item number 2, item number 37 and 40?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Jim Combs with Recreation and Parks. I'm an Assistant General Manager. Both of these positions are existing positions. The Assistant General Manager position is available and vacant because the former Assistant General Manager retired. The Golf Manager resigned. Both of them are fully funded positions, and as required by the city, anytime a vacancy occurs in an exempted position, we must take it back for a request for a new exemption. But they are existing positions.
Thank you. Thank you. We got that down, so you have it tomorrow.
Thank you,
Existing
Mr.
position
LaBonge.
exempt. Thank you.
Okay. Items 35 through 41 will be continued until tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day for action. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay. Next order of business.
Item number 47 was called special by Councilmember LaBonge, and there is an amending motion that has been distributed.
Pass the amending motion that's been distributed.
Thank you. So I vote.
Thank you. That item is before us now, Madam Clerk. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item has been approved. Item 68, I think the amending motion by Mr. Garcetti. It's been distributed?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Do you have any comments, Mr. Garcetti, or we'll go ahead and vote? I can't see you. That item is now before us, Madam Clerk. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item is approved.
And Madam President, item number 67 was adopted previously. However, there is an amending motion that has been distributed in the meantime. Do you wish to reconsider that to adopt the amending motion?
We will reconsider item number 67. Madam Clerk, open the roll on the reconsideration, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item is now before us with the amending motion. There's no questions. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item has been approved. Next item.
Item number 72, called special by Councilmember Parks.
Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. Is this number 72? Just would like to make a public plea for the community to get involved in assisting 77th in solving a homicide that occurred Wednesday, June the 15th. 20-year-old victim by the name of Christine Estrella Tyanjan, who was fatally wounded while standing in a line at a fast food restaurant at the corner of Florence and Vermont. It appears that it may have been a stray bullet that was a result of caused her death, but any information, we'd ask that the information be sent or called in to 77 detectives at 213-485-1383, and the detective is Frank Alviles from LAPD Homicide Unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Any other comments? Item is now before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item is now approved. Next item of business, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motions are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Han requests to be excused Tuesday, October 25th to arrive at 10:45 for city business. A motion is required.
Ms. Perry moves, Mr. Parks seconds.
Councilmember Parks requests to be excused Friday, October 28th for city business. A motion is required.
Mr. Smith moves, Mr. Weiss seconds.
Councilmember Garcetti requests to be excused Wednesday, November 9th to arrive at 10:30. That meets council policy.
Councilmember Garcetti is excused.
Councilmember Zine requests to be excused Wednesday, October 19th to leave at noon for city business. A motion is required.
Mr. Rosendahl moves, Ms. Perry seconds.
Councilmember Reyes requests to be excused Tuesday, October 25th to leave at noon for city business. A motion is required.
Councilmember Labange moves, Councilmember Hahn seconds.
Councilmember Gruhl requests to be excused Friday, October 21st to leave at 11 for city business. A motion is required.
Mr. Zine moves, Mr. Weiss seconds.
And that clears the desk.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members, are there any announcements? I see Mr. Parks, you have an announcement?
I'd like to ask that we have items 71 and 2 forthwith.
Item 71 and item 72 will be forthwith. Any announcements? Announcements? Mr. Rosendahl.
Madam President, I know this is probably a rare thing to say, but the Los Angeles Times on Sunday in the current section had an article on the front page by Norm Stemper, who is the former chief of police for Seattle Police Department. And frankly, he talks about the war on drugs being something we've lost. And I truly believe people should read this and think about it, because if we as a nation don't begin to look at those laws of the 80s that were bad laws that have put almost 1 million people in prison throughout our great country, we need to look at it differently. And I urge you to look at the LA Times piece, and we should talk about this further in committees, on the gang committees and others, and bring it before the council as a new way to think out of the box on the war on drugs.
Thank you, Ms. Rosendahl. Announcements, Mr. Zine.
Announcement, I want to compliment Councilmember Jan Perry for your event yesterday with the seniors at the convention center. You had like 1,000 seniors down there, a full-day program with lunch. It was very impressive, and what you've done for that community is dynamic. So I want to publicly acknowledge, a lot of us didn't know. I found out last minute, went down there and visited. It was a great opportunity for our seniors to see all the services. So let's hear it for Jan Perry. Great day, great day.
And Mr. Zine, Ms. Perry did an extraordinary job, and visitors included yourself, Mr. Reyes, Mr. Labange, Mr. Garcetti, and myself, and maybe even others that I didn't see, and the mayor was there as well. So congratulations, Ms. Perry. Mr. Reyes. Yes,
So
yes,
they
in the
actually
rain.
came out during the storm. I just want to take a moment to congratulate UCLA football team. They hit number 9, within the top 10, and you know they've come a long way. And some say number 8, But
What city are they in?
it's great, and they deserve it, man. These guys have come back 4 games,
They're going to.
pounding away 21 points in the last quarter, and it's an exciting game to watch. So I just want to congratulate them.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Yes, Mr. Parks has an announcement.
Yes, I'd like to announce that this week, the Crenshaw High School in Darcy will be playing Friday, October 21st, in the homecoming game for Crenshaw High. And I will be the Grand Marshal.
Wow.
And I wanted to announce that UCLA is going to the Battery Bowl or something like that. Oh, sorry.
We shall see.
That's right.
Is it the Battery Bowl?
The competition continues in City Council between USC and UCLA.
That's all right. They already kept out.
Yeah. I could think of another one. I won't say it. All right. I think we have adjourning motions. I see all of us standing up today. If I could ask everyone in the public, please to rise as well for adjourning motions. Thank you. Adjourning motions. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I would like you to join me today in adjourning our meeting in the memory of Vic Christensen, who passed away on October 13th. Vic was a World War II veteran and a Marine clerk with ILWU Local 63 for 43 years and a San Pedro resident. He's survived by his wife of 50 years, Bonnie, his children, Anna Marie and Victor, his grandchildren, and beloved Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. Just days before his death, this speaks to the kind of man Vic was, he attended a hearing to discuss his concern about a new housing project being proposed in the neighborhood. And over the years, he's joined his wife at community meetings to fight against port pollution and an advocate for smarter redevelopment of our properties in San Pedro. Funeral services will be Friday, October 21st at 11 o'clock in the mortuary chapel at Green Hills Memorial Park, and the visitation will be Thursday, October 20th from 2 until 7 at the mortuary. I would also like us to adjourn today in memory of Lula Mae Sanford Meshach, who passed away October 11th. She was 83 years old. Ms. Meshach was a resident of Los Angeles after World War II and became very active in her community. She worked in the county assessor's office and was a member with the New Hope Baptist Church of LA, where her funeral was held this morning. She lived with her husband Billy in a home in Florence Firestone area and remained committed to that neighborhood her entire life. She actually volunteered in my dad's 1951 campaign for supervisor, and she was an ex officio deputy of his office until his death. She was a faithful friend and an advisor to a number of elected officials, including Congresswoman Maxine Waters, my brother, former Mayor Jim Hahn. She served on the Democratic Central Committee. She was instrumental in forming the Watts chapter of the Red Cross and was really a part of mostly women who really brought the need for the Martin Luther King Hospital to the forefront. And she also served on the Charles Drew Medical Board. She serves 2 daughters, Phyllis and Betty. She leaves 2 daughters, Phyllis and Betty, and 2 grandsons, and a number of many other friends and family. We in the Watts community will really miss Ms. Meshach. And I know all members will want to join me on this last one to adjourn our memory in the grandmother of my predecessor, Rudy Savornich. Jasna Babic Tomic passed away last Wednesday at the age of 92. She immigrated to America in 1920 with her mother and joined her father in San Pedro, who had immigrated several years earlier. She was a proud 85-year resident of San Pedro. Her husband preceded her in death, and she's survived by her daughter, Winnie, who was Rudy's mother, her son-in-law, Rudy Savornich Sr., son Jack, and daughter-in-law Vicki Tomic, and her sister Ruby, her brother Mel, and her sister-in-law Katie Bobbitt. She has 3 grandsons, Rudy's one of those, 5 great-grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. She had funeral services on Saturday at Mary Star of the Sea. She was really a great great woman and certainly the matriarch of that entire family. And I know you all want to join me on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. I have two adjourning motions. First, Yvonne Marie Rainey, the wife of retired LAPD officer Maurice Rainey. Maurice had served almost 60 years as an employee of the City of Los Angeles. They were married for 58 years. She passed away on Friday, October 7th at Good Samaritan Hospital. Funeral service were held Wednesday, October the 12th at Holy Cross Cemetery Chapel in Culver City. The second adjourning motion is for Jonathan Rossi Herrett Russell, who was born on April the 20th, 1984. He was killed in an auto accident at the corner of La Brea and Coliseum on October 11th. He was only 21 years of age. Funeral service will be held in Inglewood at the Bible Enrichment Fellowship International Church at 10 a.m. on Thursday, October the 20th. He's survived by his mother, Jackie, and his father, Rossi.
Ms. Perry.
I'd like to adjourn in memory of Mary Cheney, who passed away this last Wednesday, October the 12th. She was a longtime resident of downtown Los Angeles and an activist. A lifelong professional artist, Mary fought for the inclusion of arts representatives in the formation of the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. She was active with LAPD boosters and CPAB, overseeing improved communications and responsiveness between residential needs and our police department. She worked as a documentary artist, sketching from life in the courtroom as well as the streets. And her courtroom work has been broadcast by ABC, CNN, Fox, NBC, KTTV, and Court TV. She covered such cases as the civil rights trial in the beating of Rodney King, the Steven Spielberg stalking, the O.J. Simpson civil trial, the Richard Miller FBI spy trial, the Richard Ramirez Night Stalker trial, and the civil trial of Philippine resident Marcos' wife, Imelda. She exhibited her courtroom sketches and illustrations in several Southern California exhibits, including exhibits at Loyola Law School, the classic courtroom trial, and the federal Rodney King case, Justice on Trial. The Los Angeles Sheriff's art documentary featured The Badge and the Brush and My Mom is in Jail illustrations. Her work has been published in several law reviews and is included in the Smithsonian American History Museum, the United States Air Force Art Collection, and the Los Angeles Downtown Art District website. Her quick and astute skills in sketching rendered a small book of portraits of those attending the post-9/11 gathering at City Hall for a candlelight vigil. The drawings were later acknowledged with gratitude by Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mary will be remembered for her quick humor, hard work for social causes, steadfastness of purpose, and inspiration as an artist. Her passing is a great loss to our community. She leaves behind her family members, 7 children, and many, many friends.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Any other adjourning motion, Mr. Zine?
I have 2 adjourning motions. The first is for Jerry Council, passed away October 15th. And Jerry passed away unexpectedly on October 15th, heart attack at the age of 44. Jerry served 23 years as president and general manager of 3 major Los Angeles taxi franchises, most recently general manager of LA Checker Cab and City Cab. Single-handedly brought various adversarial factions to the taxi business together to improve the industry and in return the service to visitors and citizens of Los Angeles. Jerry will be deeply missed by all his family and friends. He is survived by his wife Susan, son Tyler, and daughter Stephanie. May Jerry Council rest in peace. And my second adjourning motion is for Los Angeles Police Officer Hector Carrell, passed away October 14th. Officer Hector Carrell passed away unexpectedly in an automobile accident on October 14th. He was born in Los Angeles, May 28, 1968, appointed to the Los Angeles Police Department August 8, 1994. After successfully passing probation, worked Northeast, Wilshire, Hollenbeck divisions where he served those communities in both patrol and crash functions. On June 18, 2000, Officer Carrell was assigned to Valley Traffic Division as a 2-wheel motorcycle traffic enforcement officer. Always considered to be a friendly and easygoing officer, always upbeat with a positive attitude and strong morals. Wherever there was a good cause to work for, Hector was there. He always had a smile on his face and a joke to tell. Always full of life, and his home life was also very important to him. Loved his wife Norma deeply. They had a love for rebuilding old cars, riding his Harley, being in the company of good friends and family. would often go to Callahan's in Irwindale for dinner with his family, friends, and for fun. Officer Hector Corral will be deeply missed by all his family and friends. Los Angeles Police Officer 2+2, Hector Corral, serial number 31042. Your end to watch. Godspeed. May Officer Hector Corral rest in peace.
Thank you, and I'd ask you colleagues to join me in adjourning in the memory of Thomas Haskins. He passed away on Tuesday, October 11th of a heart attack. He was 82 years old. Thomas was a longtime resident of Los Angeles and was a Navy veteran. His ship went down in World War II, and he was a Japanese prisoner of war for 3 years. He received 2 Purple Hearts in service. He was very active in the community and even served at the LAPD substation in Granada Hills. He will be terribly missed by his family, friends, and an entire community. His daughter Catherine and son-in-law Phil Tabby reside in my district. She's also survived by daughters Pamela and Kelly and son Thomas. I ask that we adjourn in his memory. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. The meeting's now adjourned. Mr. Reyes.
Plum Committee will begin at 1 o'clock.
Thank you. First time on